Dear friends, welcome to today's podcast of Say Something Sanidhya. In today's episode, we have a very special guest with us, Miss Minket Lepcha. Minket won the Young Green Filmmaker Award for her first documentary, The Voices of Teesta, and she was into advertising for 10 years. And right now, she is a storyteller and helping to conserve the culture of the Eastern Himalayas. So, as Minket calls her an octopus, I would request Minket to introduce herself to all of us.
Thank you so much, Sanidhya. And actually, I was in Delhi for 10 years, but I was in advertising for 4 years, just to
Okay.
correct you. And yeah, so I have been doing some really varied things from the time that I left Delhi. I was working in advertising. I worked in two organizations. One was Rediffusion, and another one was Ogilvy and Mather. And after that, I came back home and I started documenting stories and folklore, and has been a long journey where I become a storyteller. Yeah, in between I made a film called Voices of Teesta. That is a film
Right.
that I directed, and I also got an opportunity to travel right from the source till where the River Teesta ends, and it helped me understand many communities along the way. And not only that, it also made me understand what is the relationship a human being has with the river. So yeah, it has been a very fruitful journey, and I'm still exploring what I can do and how I can do, but most importantly, I do it with my heart.
Right, Minket. So, as I know that you are born and brought up in Darjeeling and then you moved to Delhi for your further studies. So, can you elaborate more on your childhood?
Yeah, I actually was born and brought up in Darjeeling, and actually got a very good education. My mom and dad, they both are not educated, but I had a very good education where I got to go to a convent school with the help of my aunt. She actually helped me get through that school, and I grew up in a area where everything was a busy life, because we have a small restaurant, and there we sell momo, thuppa, and I don't know if you heard of it. And I've
Yeah,
grown
yeah,
up in that environment. Yeah, I've grown up in that environment where we used to work in the shop as well as study in the same house. We had a very small house where we had to figure out, do the work as well as study in the same table. So yeah, it was, I wouldn't say tough. I feel like I was really blessed to have such a loving family and very supportive family. But yeah, we equally used to work hard. So we used to work in a restaurant as well as study in the same time. So growing up was very learning.
right.
I really explored many areas, because we were talking to so many people, customers coming to the restaurant, and understanding them, understanding their stories. I think that's how I also fell in love with the story in a way.
Right. Because of varied backgrounds of people, you must be interested to know the stories of people, like what make them think and believe in certain ways.
Yeah, because I did not realize when I was a very shy kid, and I wouldn't speak much in the school, and it's because of these experiences which allowed me to kind of really uh, also allow to push your boundaries, because when you have a restaurant and we have to take care of the customers, you can't be shy, and you have to really push your boundaries. So
Right.
naturally, I was a shy person, but then taking orders and being there and talking to people allowed me to just know more people, so yeah, that's how it happened.
Okay, that's really nice. Like you definitely come from a very humble background, we see. So Minket,
Yeah.
after completing your education from a convent school, and then you moved to Delhi to study from SRCC. Like SRCC is among the topmost colleges in India for uh, pursuing undergraduate education. So can you elaborate on that, like moving to Delhi and like how was the environment there?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I come from an indigenous group called the Lepchas, and we actually get a quota in school also.
Okay.
Like college also, we get a quota. So through the quota, I got through this college. Not that I was a great student, but through the quota, my name was shortlisted for Shri College of Commerce, and
Okay.
it was a struggle. I did not really like studying there in such a reputed college because I could not find myself in such a area or in a circle of friends where I was constantly comparing myself with those brilliant kids, and in fact I did not do so well in the college too. But the environment was not bad as per se, but I think that was the time I realized how mentally you can really deprive yourself of your self-worth. And during my college years, I think I went through a lot of issues with regards to my mental health, because I was not being able to understand myself first of all, not being able to understand the scenarios second, and also the new city, because when you have a Asian face, you yourself going through a lot of struggle. People are calling you chinky, people are calling you, oh, you know China, and all that, the names that they call. And I think it was a lot of pressure for me to really adapt and adopt new culture. And yeah, I did not really enjoy my college as much as I would have, sadly.
Right. I think this racial discrimination, like with the northeastern communities in central India and in North India, like that is a big issue which a lot of northeast people face.
Right, that's true. That's true, and I think, but over a period of time, I think it is evolving. I see a lot of people making this, changes, having voices for whatever things that they are not really happy with. Because in the olden times, we never really had this kind of things. We were always having to push our boundaries, make ourselves think, okay, what is it that we have to? How can we negate this? How can we just avoid these things? But yes, I did have a fight with a couple of people. But I see nowadays, I think the youth are more upfront. They are more there, speaking
Right.
up, and that's very nice about it.
Definitely, yes.
And of
So
course,
Minket,
we have the media also, social media,
right,
where the
right, right,
voices
right,
kind
right.
of become louder than what it could have been probably in the early 2000s.
Right, right, right. Definitely agreed to that. So Minkit, after pursuing your BCom from SRCC, then you moved into advertising, and then what made you move into filmmaking?
Oh, actually, I am not a trained filmmaker, frankly speaking. And in advertising, we are always exposed to making the short films and
Right,
making audio video for the company and all that. So yeah, so I was acquainted with these short films and advertisements and all that,
right,
commercials. And but it was back in 2007 when there was a big movement with regards to the dams. And there was this dam which was being made in Zongu, which is in North Sikkim, and most of the lecturers were actually revolting against it. And I had no clue about what's going on. I don't even know, my surname was what was my surname all about. But
okay,
while I was reading news and snippets of what was happening, I think it was not a very great experience, because I think that was the beginning of my journey where I was allowing myself to question who am I. And after that, I was really moved, because one of the shamans who used to pray to Kanchenjunga, the holy mountain, passed away, and there was no one to really take forward that whole ritual, the learnings. And there was a newspaper article right in the front page of Times of India in Delhi. And one of my colleagues asked, okay, so what are you going to do now? So you don't have any shamans in your place. And that is what I didn't have answer to that. But I think I'm still answering to that question that was posed to me, even after 7, 8 years, or for that matter, 10 years now. So then I went back home and I started documenting these stories and folklore. And I think it was just a general and natural process because I was visiting Zongu, North Sikkim, so many times to understand these dam movements. And that is the time when I finally left my job. I went back home and I went to Sikkim, and I started actually sharing, interacting with all these medicine men and women and elders. And I think. In 2015, I got the opportunity to really make the film because mostly because I had documented few stories from the elders and the folklore. So I think that was one of the main reason why I was also chosen to make the film. And I think it was very interesting because for me, more than making or directing the film, I had a history of having almost 5 6 years of research that I kept doing informally, where I
Right.
went and I came. And when I actually started filming and with the help of friends, I think it was very easy for me because I knew exactly where I had to go. I knew whom to contact, and I had a data with me already. So the shooting did not take much time. It took me 2 months or so,
Okay.
and because I had to travel. But yeah, editing did take time because I still have 35 hours of data with me with regards to that film.
Oh man.
So
Okay.
yeah, it was a very natural process, you know, and everybody came and helped, and they all were so helpful for me to make this film. It was not so difficult
Right.
to produce this film. So I think the filmmaking is not for me as a career. The filmmaking became a medium to tell the story of River Teesta, and that happened to be through a documentary film. So
Definitely.
it was
Definitely.
not like a career choice for me.
Right, 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 right. So I think like eventually you moved into like making a documentary about River Teesta, which was not a like I think choice that you made, but you thought that
Yeah.
a better way to preserve your culture and to like to raise up the voice of the people who are opposing the dam movement and like to even preserve the culture of Lepchas and like the river culture of Teesta.
Yeah, I think it was a very natural process, and I must thank Deepa Joshi, who was the one who gave me an opportunity to really work on this film, because many of them might think that I'm not from a film background, so why was I chosen? So for me, this was more of like an ethnographic study of this my own community, and also to follow the trail of River Tista. So
Right.
this filmmaking was just one of the mediums, you know, the ethnographic study of the River Tista. So I see more, even if you look at the film, it's more of like a research rather than just there is no, wouldn't say there are no frills around it. So it's
Right,
just
right, right, right.
basic documents. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So, like, can you explain in detail the role of Deepa Joshi and like how you raise funds for this movie?
Actually, Deepa Joshi and her team had a project for 5 years. It was around the River Tista, and it
Okay,
was NWO project, which was a Netherlands-based project, and
okay,
they had this whole project name called the Sopicom. So they were working regarding the governance and conservation, and talking about the hydro dams and all that comes along with it, the
right,
policies.
right, 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 right.
So the film was just one of the products, but there were a lot of articles that was written. There were a lot of researchers who had come together to kind of study about the dams. So Deepa Joshi was heading this project, and there were a lot of researchers who was part of it. Like from Pune, we had Mr. KG Joy, and he was also a very well-renowned researcher. So all these people came together and started engaging with a lot of people and stakeholders which had to do with dams, and many articles has been published. So if you really look up with Deepa Joshi, then she has written a lot of wonderful articles on hydropower and also women and water.
Okay, that's really nice. So,
Yeah.
like when you went into movie making and you started meeting people from the community and people who live along Teesta. So, can you explain the process of making the movie and like what you felt while making the movie and like meeting so many people of your culture and traditions?
I think when I started studying different aspects of the river, like I said, some of the, I think, entities of what I wanted to document was already there. But it was very important to really stretch yourself because it was just not about the dams. But that's what I wanted to kind of also portray. And the
Right.
second part of it was, for me, it was culture was very important. And when I say culture, it was not just to show the culture of the lepchas, although we consider this river to be our mother and father, you know.
Right.
So, and when we die, also our spirit goes back to the mountains through this river. So it's very holy for us. But there were other communities like Rai, Limbu, you know, they all come, and like in the Maghe Sankranti, there is in January, all the shamans come and dance near the confluence of River Teesta. So
Oh,
that was also equally very important. And to document that. And
right.
these narratives and all were something which I was really fascinated even before I made the film, because when I was documenting the oral stories of different communities, I think the association with nature was very close. The association with the river was very, very dear.
Right.
And the kind of language, the way they used to, the lexicon, the way they used to speak about it was so much full of love and so much full of like respect for the nature. So that is what I wanted to document. So I started documenting shamans also, and I started documenting some of the people who actually used to come to us a riverbed and actually pray. And sometimes the death ceremony, or if it's a
Right.
family gathering, a yearly annual celebration. So all these celebrations, some of the, not all, but most of them has been documented. And the second part of it is also I spoke with the stakeholders, for example, also people like activists, NGOs.
Right. Right.
And to them I also, it was a very conscious decision not to really document NGOs also. I wanted this to be a personal story of people. So I
Okay.
went through the NGO, but
Right.
I started zeroing down on people, and women, so that I could actually get that person's story and that
Right.
person's connection with the river, so that I wanted it to look authentic. So you find many community, many people from different communities talking about their association with the river. Right from North Sikkim, the one who used to guard the lake called Gurudongmar Lake. There is a Pipon. Pipon is a Zumsa system in North Sikkim. So right from there to an old shaman in Zongu in Lepcha, in Zongu in Sikkim. And
Okay.
so he was the one who sang the song of River Tista, and it's still there in the film. So, but
Okay.
he's no more with us. He passed away, I think, a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And also like having to have social activists, like in Lachung there was this guy who was talking about why big dams are not feasible for a mountain like that, why we should have mini dams so that we can cater to the demand of the public and not to the corporates. We also have like interview by the engineer of the hydropower dams, talking
Okay.
about the economy behind it, why is it important, how many how many like what's the revenue that the state gets. So these are different. I wanted to have both the opinions and both the viewpoint, and I wanted basically people to decide what they can think or what is important for them. So yeah, so many people and many people's narratives are there.
Right. 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 So Minket, like, can you explain in detail about preserving the folk culture through stories? And like, I have read about like one of the famous stories that you narrate, the Totla Ka Fool story, which is about forgiveness and which you teach to people, teach to children. So can you narrate that for us?
Could you just tell me again which one you're talking about?
Totla Ka Fool, Totala, Totla Ka Fool,
Oh, that is Totola. Totola
Totola.
kuful, yeah. Totola. It's basically a medicinal flower or seed, and this particular flower actually blossoms only during the night time. And so the Lepcha folklore goes on saying that. Idbudevurum, which is our god, does not have a gender. This god actually used to be basically very happy about whatever used to happen in the mountains, right? Because the mountain was full of interdependency, full of love, and full of gratefulness. And
Right.
but what happened was this particular flower was blossoming during the daytime, and it started eating the bees. And
Okay.
when it started eating the bees, there was a lot of imbalance that was created on Mother Earth. And there was
Okay.
so much of imbalance that Itbudevurum had to come down to really figure out what happened. And when Itbudevurum sees this flower eating up all the bees, actually the Itbudevurum curses this flower and says that from now onwards you will only blossom during the nighttime. And till now also this flower blossoms only during the nighttime. But after many years, when Idbudevurum came down to Mother Earth, uh, so everyone was happy, right? The rainbow was
Right.
back, the butterflies were back, the flowers blossoming, the fruits bearing at the right time. But there was this little flower in the evening time was sobbing and crying. And when Idbudevurum goes, and it is the same flower which got the curse, and says, okay, now what happened? And then the flower says, please forgive me for having caused such an imbalance in Mother Earth. Because of my greed and my greed for the taste, I actually ate up all the bees, and I feel so sad that I missed the sun. And that is the time when the god, having realized that this flower has really repented, says, I forgive you. So my point here is, like, forgiveness is very important. If God has
Right.
forgiven this flower, I tell my children it's important to forgive too. And so after that, the God actually gives a boon to this flower, saying, from now onwards, you will be blessed. Your seeds will be blessed as one of the most pure form of a seed. So even in our culture and our rituals, whenever there's a marriage or a death or a birth ceremony, we actually offer this seed
Okay.
in a form of like celebrating. So the Idbudevurum kind of gave a blessing to this seed, saying that from now onwards you will be regarded as a highly pure form of a flower. It's not a flower, it's a seed, and that very
Okay.
seed is used to we eat while we have cough or have a sore throat. So this seed is very important, and yeah, it is a good sign. It's always been considered a good sign. And this Totolaco fool, or it is in scientific name is Oroxylum indicum. It blossoms only during the nighttime till now also, but
Okay.
the flower is eaten as vegetable by many communities in the mountains.
Okay.
And the seed, the pod, it is a dispersal seed, so it's through the wind the seed gets pollinated.
So
So
Minket, like that's a really nice story actually. Like I think definitely everyone should practice forgiveness, and like when you forgive anyone, like you actually give them a gift, and like you give a gift to yourself, that you take away the mental burden of the pain that you go through, which that person has caused you.
hmm. Yeah, I mean, in the sense, you mean to say by forgiveness?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, but it's not easy in the sense, it's not easy like we say it. But I think it's important to talk about it. It's important to talk about it because we are never taught to forgive when we are kids. So unless and until we don't talk about it, I think the children will never know that what it is like to forgive. So we have to talk about things like forgiveness and letting go. I think these are some important virtues that we should have more than love or more than even gratitude.
Right, 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 right. That's a really important virtue to have in one's life. So,
Yeah.
I guess like there's a very special instance that you have had in your life when you narrated these folklores to visually impaired children in a special school. So, can you narrate that incident?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I was really fascinated because I really wanted to know what a visually, impaired child must be thinking of a river, because I talk about this river Teesta to most of the time, and that's one of my favorite narration, favorite story that I say. But
Right.
for a visually impaired child, they've never seen a river, and
Right,
it
right,
was very, it's challenging for me as well as very important for me to also tell children what a river is like. And
right.
so I was challenged, but I was equally excited because, it was allowing me to kind of become a storyteller in such a way that I actually show the river through my story to these
Mhm.
visually impaired children. And when I went there, they all were excited, and like any story, they heard the story, right? And
Right,
they were really interested because I was doing a lot of these activities where they were playing around and they were singing and they were dancing. So these kind of activities were going on. But the second day, when I told them, make your own story, I think that is the time when I had tears in my eyes because uh, I saw more beautiful side of the river through them than I would have seen
oh,
myself, because they created stories of love, they created stories of how it is important to give, because there were stories of them saying, like, just like how the murky river does not decide whom to feed the water or whom not to feed the water. So the
right.
murky river, even though it's murky and dirty, still provides water to plants and animals. So why can't we
Mhm.
provide for other human beings? That's what the stories were like. And they
Wow.
sang in just 10 minutes. They prepared a song and they sang that. So I
Wow.
uploaded that in a YouTube, that in River and Stories you'll find. And I think they were also this very young boy, so innovative and so creative, because in the story the river gets really angry and starts moving upwards. So he got a bottle of water. Already the place is quite scarce with water, but somehow he got a bottle of water, and on the other hand there was a sand. So while he was telling the story, he says, just like in your story, the water becomes murky, in my story also the water becomes murky. So he puts the sand in the bottle and then he makes the water murky. So he's making me see
Oh,
how the water has become murky, but it's
oh,
not failing to provide water to the plants and animals and birds. So that was a very moving, I think I was really happy to do what I was doing at that moment, because it just touched my heart. It just touched my heart in the sense, like, uh, how we fail to see so many things which is right there in front of us. And
right,
there are people, there are children who cannot see but still can see so many things which is not there around them.
right, right, right. So Minket, like this brings us almost to the end of the interview. I have this one
Mhm.
with you, like which I wanted to ask since the starting. How difficult is it
Mhm.
from a from a lucrative or well-paying career like being in advertising to being an independent filmmaker or a social activist or a storyteller, like all the roles that you have been into?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm a social activist really. I mean, I've not done enough. I know many social activists who've done so many things. So
Mhm.
I don't consider myself social activist, but yeah, I do talk about environment. And I think when you realize that what you want to do, uh, money doesn't become a factor.
Okay.
Money doesn't become a factor. And uh, I was earning quite good when I quit my advertising job. I was working as an accounts supervisor, and that is
Okay.
the time I left. And of course, it was just a threshold to probably moving up to the ladder, but I was
Right.
not happy. There was something that was not making me happy. And I think this brings me to a bigger question. Like right now, I struggle. It's not a hunky-dory life. It's a struggle every time. But
Mhm.
I've met some really rich friends. And rich family, in the sense we are rich with heart.
Right,
And
right,
start working with your heart. Somehow you don't need more, you don't need much, because I think when you work from your heart is so full that you don't need more. But when your heart is empty, you would want money to fill that heart.
right,
And
right, 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 right.
that is where the difference is. And of course, I do struggle monetarily sometimes, but it does not sadden me. Not
Mhm.
neither does it really deter me from what I want to do or what I do, because the happiness that I get from the work that I do I don't think any money, any amount of money could have given me that happiness. And I feel so alive after I came back from Delhi, and I
Right.
started working in the villages and working in the mountains. I just feel very alive every day for what I do. So I think that is what main sorry, that is what is the main purpose I feel for us also to be alive. But I can't say for everybody.
Right, right,
But
right, right.
important to do what you want to do. I think then things will follow.
Definitely, definitely. So I guess like the message here is like just to take money as a means to an end and not the entire end in itself.
Yeah, because once you take see, the money is not that it is not important. It is important, but it is not
Mhm.
essential.
Right,
And of course, you have to take care of your family. You have to take care of your loved ones. But let not that be the driving factor to really lead your life.
right, right.
That is what I've lived it after I quit my advertising job. and
Mhm.
uh, and that is how I have got some really rich friends, rich in the sense, rich in heart,
Right,
rich
right,
in
right, right, right.
love, and rich in companionship. So that is, I think, what I've earned.
Definitely, Minket, definitely. So, Minket, this brings us to the last question of the podcast. I want to know what is your way ahead in life? Like, where do you see yourself a few years from now? And like, what do you think about where storytelling and teaching children will take you?
That's a beautiful question, because I don't know what I'm doing the next day. But one thing is very important. The stories that I'm telling is not found in the books. The stories that I am narrating are not in the curriculum of your school book.
Right.
So these stories are told by elders. These stories were narrated by our ancestors, not just to tell the story, but to talk about the environmental knowledge. So the environmental history is engraved in these stories. So for me, my vision is I want the education system to take folklore seriously, and to make the curriculum in such a way that it becomes an experiential learning for them, for the students, because the students knows everything across the world, but not a surrounding next to their yard or next to their house. So
Right.
that is a problem with our education system, where we are educated about everything away from our place. And that's why we move away from our place, because we were taught to move away from our place. So I want the future generation to be more aware of their surroundings, and I hope there are more storytellers from Northeast, from the Asian communities, because our stories are very rich, our stories are very powerful, and it has a lot of knowledge, traditional wisdom, and indigenous knowledge, and these stories needs to be told and retold again and again. So I hope in future I can set up something with regards to that, so that the stories find a living museum, and not a dead museum.
Wow. That's a great thought. Like I wish you all the success for that. And I believe
Thank you.
you will be able to preserve the culture, you will be able to preserve the folklores, and like children's from many generations to come will be able to see what you have preserved, and like will be able to take beautiful will be able to have beautiful takeaways from that.
Yeah, and I would just like to add at the end, like, culture is always moving, culture is always changing. It's not permanent, it's given,
Right.
right? But if you forget the nature or the environmental history behind that culture, then that culture is just very hollow. So that's something which we need to understand.
Definitely, definitely. It's really important to know the local story, local history, and local stories of your place to like imbibe it in your culture and in your daily life.
Yeah, because we need to survive when there's a catastrophe, and the biggest catastrophe that can happen is a natural disaster,
Right.
like a flood or earthquake. And if we don't realize that our stories have those kind of indication already, then we are just not taking ourselves seriously. That's what I feel.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Minkit, for all the time and like for taking out so much time and effort and like being present here at this time. I know like you have a really busy schedule. So as a last request, I would just ask you to ask all the listeners I would request you to ask all the listeners to like, follow, and share the podcast Say Something Sanidhya, and share it with maximum people to like share your story, to know more about folk culture, to know more about preserving the culture and how it impacts the life of people.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sanidhya, for inviting me to your podcast. And it's because of your effort and it's because of your honesty towards what you're doing that inspired me to come here and actually spend some time with you and share my story. Because I believe in the passion that you have towards your work, and so I think it's the very passion that drew me towards coming here and actually tell the story also. And I would
Thank you.
request all our viewers, all our listeners, to kind of like and subscribe and share this podcast Say Something Sanidhya. And I would invite listeners to also know stories from us, from people who do not really out there in the open, but we are doing our small bit to preserve our culture, to preserve our environmental history. And it's something much beyond wearing your traditional cloth, because our oral history was much more richer than just the cloth we wore.
Right.
So thank you once again, and thank you, Sanidhya, and all the best for whatever you do. And I'm sure you will do wonders in days to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Minket, so much.
Yeah, and all the best.
Thanks again. Thanks again. So, signing off here, I hope you preserve your culture and you take the legacy of River Teesta and the Lepchas ahead.